Hey friends, welcome to week 1 of my Mental Health Awareness Month video series thing. Maybe it should have a name. If you have any ideas, if anyone has any ideas, please let me know. Anyways, this week we're going to be talking about what mental illness is and is not, the prevalence of mental illness in society, the effects mental illness has on an individual, and the effect mental illness has on society as a whole. Basically, I just want to give some context as to why it's so important that we understand what mental illness is. That being said, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. So before we start talking about all things mental illnesses, we have to answer the question, what exactly is a mental illness? According to mayoclinic.org, mental illness, also called mental health disorders, refer to a wide range of mental health conditions, disorders that affect your mood, thinking, and behavior. Examples of mental health disorders include depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, and many, many more that we'll cover all before the end of May. While there is a wide spectrum of mental illnesses, the underlying theme with all of them is that they all impair one's daily life on some level. One thing I've noticed is that people will often confuse negative feelings for mental health disorders. For example, someone who is feeling depressed might confuse it for depression, or someone who's feeling anxious about life stressors might confuse it for an anxiety disorder. It can definitely be confusing, but in general, a mental health disorder will cause impairment in daily functioning, while negative feelings tend to come and go with situations. In people with mental illnesses, there's not always an underlying situation or event that causes the symptoms that they experience. Mental illnesses are extremely common amongst all people all around the world. Chances are, if you are a human being, then you have either experienced mental illness yourself or know someone who has. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, 1 in 5 adults will experience mental illness annually. To put that in context, if your workplace, for example, has 100 employees, then around 20 of those individuals will have experienced mental illness. Or if your school consists of 500 students, around 100 of those students will have or will experience mental illness at some point. I feel that people tend to think that mental illness is relatively uncommon when it is in fact very common. This is likely because, 1, most mental illnesses are invisible to anyone who is not personally experiencing it, and 2, it is something that is not really talked about, especially when compared to just how prevalent it really is. Mental health disorders can negatively affect individuals not only mentally but also physically. In addition to the many physical symptoms that accompany a lot of mental health disorders, those with mental illnesses are at an increased risk to develop certain complications such as cardiovascular and metabolic diseases. Additionally, mental health disorders can significantly disrupt people's goals in life. For example, high school students that experience depression are twice as likely to drop out. So if all this hasn't convinced everyone watching that this is something that we need to take very, very seriously, maybe this will. Mental illnesses affect us not only on an individual level, but also on a societal level. According to NAMI, depression and anxiety disorders cost the global economy $1 trillion in lost productivity each year. Additionally, depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide, and unemployment rate is much higher in adults with mental illness compared to those without. So this first video was pretty much just my very, very lengthy way of saying that mental illness should be taken very seriously, and in my opinion much more seriously than it currently is. My hope is that some of the statistics that I've presented in this video will be eye-opening for some, and that even more importantly, it shows those with mental illness that they are not alone, even though sometimes it can really feel like it. While everything I've talked about can seem very daunting, I'd like to leave you guys with this bit of information from the Active Minds website, which, if you're not familiar with Active Minds, you should definitely check them out, especially if you're a college student. Sometimes referred to as the anxious generation, Today's young people are actually much more likely to talk about mental health than their parents or grandparents. This generation is closer than ever to breaking the stigma around mental illness in a time when only 44% of adults and less than 20% of children and adolescents with diagnosable mental health problems receive the treatment that they need. Guys, we're certainly headed in the right direction, but we need to keep taking steps and leaps forward to truly change things for the better. Thank you.